Patch notes. What's going on, Ronan? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're talking about the latest New World patch that is talking about the Mutator system that has been added into the game as of this patch today, January 25th. They're also going to do the Umbral Shards, which is how you get past 600 into 625. There's going to be some discounts on Azoth fast traveling, some new fast travel spots, as well as some changes to Outpost Rush. So let's go ahead and jump into these patch notes. I'm going to go ahead and try to read these for you guys. And if you want me to try something different instead of just reading them straight out, or if you like them being read straight out, let me know in the comments. And, I'll try to do what I can do to make things happen, All right, so this Expeditions, Mutators, Umbral Shards, and more. First off, we're starting off with the Expedition Modifiers, the Mutators. We are introducing a new in-game feature, Expedition Mutators. Mutators change the familiar by augmenting normal and named enemies found within expeditions, changing the way encounters play out and what strategies players should consider before a battle. And as combat changes, so do the rewards. New bespoke gear and resources can be found, providing additional means to increase your power level. This system is intended to rotate through a unique combination of expeditions and mutations each week, with 10 difficulty levels per expedition mutation. Players will be challenged to climb the ladder with the aim of eventually reaching the max difficulty. Please be advised that recommended gear score levels for a mutated expedition is important, as it directly factors into enemy scaling and by consequence your chances of success. Please note this combat scaling is individual per player and separate from the base difficulty increases in health and damage. Also, it's very important to note that whatever the mutators are, you want to make sure that your gear is equipped accordingly. So if it's like void damage, make sure you have some void gems in to, maintain that gear, maintain the damage so you're not really getting hurt that much. Entering a mutated expedition, players will require a codex for opening a mutated version of the expedition. On completion of a regular difficulty expedition, players will receive the codex for that expedition and a one-time reward of a mutated expedition tuning orb. Note, players that are invited to a group that already has a codex and orb will be rewarded with both items upon completion. The mutated expedition tuning orb will not be rewarded on additional playthroughs of regular difficulty expeditions. Upon approaching and interacting with the expedition menu, players will be able to see the type of mutator available, the mutation level, gear score recommended to advance, and lastly, if they meet the qualifications for entry. Mutator orbs are universal. Players can craft one per week and will be able to purchase additional orbs in the faction shop. I hope you can sell them on the store as well. We'll have to see. Scoring and advancement. Score is a performance base taken from a combination of categories. Score is also a shared value for group members. The following categories count towards the group's overall score value. Time, the better the score, calculated at the end of a run. I want to pause right there for a second. I kind of hoped that they wouldn't keep time in this because of how time usually plays out in these runs. So time is a huge score that's going to be calculated against you if you don't reach that time in the right amount of time. And if you're having difficulty the first time through or the next times through, you're going to end up with like a negative score value, and you won't get the rewards or get to move on to that next tier level, which is going to be an issue. What's eventually going to happen, is what I'm afraid of, because they really want to talk about build diversity, is that with a time limit in place, it makes people want to find the best guild to run the fastest gear they need to run these mutator dungeons. And the only way they're going to do that is going to go online. Everybody's going to be using the same builds. If you don't have this certain build, they're not going to take you in there if you're trying to find a random pickup group. That is kind of the issue that we may run into with the timed trials. So I hope this is something that they look over again and consider changing. I don't think the time trials is really good for a game where you want a diversity in your builds going into runs. AI kills, continuing, AI kills. A target value for killing a predetermined amount of enemies with the expedition. Takedowns, a target value for killing named enemies within the expedition. Team wipes. Each team wipe during a boss fight reduces the score by a significant amount. Respawns, each respawn reduces the score by a moderate amount. There are also bonus multipliers for run efficiency, Minimals respawning, wiping, speed, and taking down all targets. These are calculated at the end of the expedition run. The score ranks are bronze, silver, and gold. Advancement through each mutator difficulty level requires reaching a pre-designated level of proficiency within the highest achieved level. Higher scores mean advancement to higher difficulties, which in turn lead to bigger rewards. So there's mutation effects, elemental mutations infuse enemies in the expedition with a specific elemental damage type, increasing their resistance to that damage type, converting a large portion of their damage to that type, and giving them powerful elemental based abilities. Hellfire infuses enemies with fire, allowing them to burn players who oppose them. Eternal infuses enemies with void, granting them abilities that debuff players or buff their void infused allies. They had a typo in here, they put them twice. Promotion mutations grant creatures in the expedition powerful new abilities. Savage AI apply healing reduction and cast damaging beams around themselves. Indomitable creatures persist through damage with life-stealing abilities and are able to summon a phalanx, blocking all incoming player projectiles. There are curses. Curse mutations apply dangerous effects to players, forcing them to work together to overcome the curse's power. At the highest difficulties, curses become empowered, creating additional tactical challenges. Desiccated players will occasionally combust with elemental energy. When the curse is empowered, players will need to cleanse themselves by approaching the combusting player. That's kind of interesting. Centered players will find their abilities turning against them. After players in the group have used a certain number of activated abilities, explosive silent zones will appear on all players. When the curse is empowered, players will lose natural mana regeneration and must enter the silence zones to regenerate their mana. That's also kind of interesting. Definitely going to be difficult, since everything is very ability based and you only get so many of those. Endgame Update Part 2 and Umbral Upgrade System. So the Umbral Upgrade System is where players can upgrade individual gear pieces from their gear score being 590 to gear score 625 by spending Umbral Shards. Nope, they reduced this requirement from 600 to 590 based on PTR feedback and the desire to require legendary items to engage in the Umbral system. The ability to upgrade items of any type is unlocked when players hit 600 expertise for that item. Players can acquire Umbral Shards via 3 methods. Expedition Mutators. Those are going to be the most efficient way to earn shards. The higher the difficulty level and the higher the score rank achieved, the more shards a player will earn. Another typo, they put the there twice. Opening Gypsum Cast once the expertise of that type has reached at least 600 expertise, and crafting 600 gear score items once the expertise of that type has reached at least 600 expertise. Upgrading any item via Umbral Shards binds the item to the player. For expertise, the player raised their expertise from 590 to 600 through the current means Gypsum Cast and random open world bumps. Expertise is increasing from 600 to 625 via the Umbral system. Expertise gear scaling any item that is purchased from the trading post or acquired through player to player after the January patch will have its effective gear score scaled down to the midpoint of players' expertise and the item's gear score if their expertise is lower than the item gear score. General enhancements and quality of life improvements. Whenever you craft a gear score 600 item, if your expertise for that item is under 600, it will trigger an expertise bump. This will be another great way for crafters to get their expertise to 600 in addition to the already released Emerald Gypsum from Trade Skill Aptitude reward containers. If you get an expertise bump from random drop in the open world, the loot ticker will now show which item gave you the expertise bump. If you get an expertise bump from opening a reward cache, the opening sequence will highlight which item gave you the bump. You can now craft the Topaz Gypsum Attunement Potion at any arcane station as well as any Tier 5 camp. Increased the odds of getting Topaz Gypsum when killing enemies and attuned. We addressed an issue where Gypsum casts were only providing +1 bonuses when opening above gear score 585 for an item. Now, upgrades from Gypsum cast from 585 to 600 should be at least +2 except when expertise is 599. To allow players more access to use gypsum more freely as they acquire it, we've removed the crafting cooldowns on gypsum orbs. Now we got some changes to the world experience that players have in the game. One of these changes is going to be expedition changes. With the release of Expedition Mutators, we've made some balance changes and updates to existing content. We've made expeditions more enticing by updating rewards and drop rates, bringing them in line with other in-game activities. So drop rates for named enemies and expeditions have been significantly increased, and Tier 5 gear has been added to Dynasty Shipyard loot tables when playing in the Mutated expedition. We've adjusted certain enemy counts. Lazarus Instrumentality reduced the number of enemies when sealing the ancient Azoth portals in the Ostium. For Expedition Tuning Orbs for Amarine Excavation, Starstone Barrows, The Depths, and Dynasty Shipyard can be purchased from the faction shop once a day. Expedition Tuning Orbs for Garden of Genesis and Lazarus Instrumentality can be purchased once a week. To increase access to crafting Expedition Tuning Orbs, we made the following materials able to be tradable, which were previously bound to players: light seeds, corrupted lodestones, crystal fragments, shards, and silvers and chisels. So at least people can be able to buy the materials they need to craft the tuning orbs. I still think they shouldn't lock these things out though. That's kind of stupid. I'm not gonna lie. Off the top of my head, locking players out from being able to do dungeons is stupid. Just let people just run the dungeons over again. Ridiculous. So I don't like that. I don't like being gated out of like what's supposed to be normal content. Like raids or something like that, I can understand have to be attuned to. I can even understand the mutation orbs, but being gated out of like just dungeons because you can only get an orb a week or an orb a day, just keep the dungeon open and let people run in and run it when they want to. Or be able to sell the orbs on the store so people can just buy as many orbs as they want to. And still sell all the things. And sell everything on the, not the store, but the trading post. So players can trade these things with each other. I don't like it. I don't like it. Going on, we've made significant reductions to crafting costs for expedition keys, global key crafting changes. They reduced the star metal chisel coin cost to 150 down to 200. Reduced Orchilm chisel coin cost to 200 down from 400. And the Asmodeum chisel coin cost to 250 down from 500. Those are some big drops. Eternal Heart reduced all elemental mote costs to craft it. They now cost 10 of each mote, down from 30. Same with the Elemental Heart. They reduced all elemental mote costs 10 instead of 30. And the same for the Undying Heart, except now it costs 2 of each quintessence, down from 6. Dynasty Tuning Orb has gone down from 1 to 2 corrupted crystals required to craft. And then they also reduced the amount of obsidian voidstone required to craft it from 8 to 10. For the Lazarus Tuning Orb, you only need 1 instead of 3 corrupted lodestones. And for the Genesis Tuning Orb, you only need 1 instead of 2 corrupted lodestones. There's some Mutated Tuning Orb changes from the PTR. They reduced the amount of runestone required to craft. It was 10, now it's 5. Gemstone dust was 10, now it's 5. And chisels were 2, and now it's only 1. For fast travel costs, which I think is a big deal here because I've been going a lot of places. We've heard your frustrations with the cost of fast travel, and this release includes an update that dramatically reduces the distance factor and the amount of Azoth required for each trip. Accordingly, the faction control point bonus associated with fast travel now reduces the distance factor to 0. New fast travel shrines have been unearthed. So there's now new shrines near the Amarine Excavation, near the northeast wall of the Shattered Obelisk Complex, just outside the entrance to the Depths, in front of the Garden of Genesis, below the Sirens Amphitheater, and next to the entrance to the Lazarus Instrumentality. So now we have some new fast travel points to those dungeons instead of having to run all the way to them while your teammate waits for you. That's pretty good. They should have did that from the beginning, or at least like a summoning stone or something. Fixed an issue with the following elite strongholds not consistently applying the appropriate affliction to players that enter visually afflicted areas: Mangled Heights, Busty Inferior Superior, Murkguard, and Malevolence. I always call it Murkguard. It's like Midgard, but Murkguard sounds better. Siren Stand revised chest placement of several elite chests to be closer to their associated named enemy. Mangled Heights slightly moved one elite chest at Mangled Poxgate. For some notable fixes, they fixed inconsistent spelling for the player-facing name of Eridanus. There was an issue with Windsward Patrol faction missions displaying incorrect values. They added a fix to prevent duplicate objectives from being given to players. Yetis converted from elite bosses to elites after the Winter Convergence event. Added enemies to an abandoned campsite in Restless Shore. Increased the spawn time to level 35 plus points of interest to account for longer time to kill enemies. Fixed an issue found in PTR where a tree flies into the sky after being chopped down. That was in the PTR, huh? Fixed an issue where the Disciple of Disorder only spawned once in Murkgard. Is it Murkgard or Midgard? If it's Murkgard, then they definitely had a typo up here at the top. Decreased some load times. Fixed an issue where a fence was not rendering for all players in Weaver's Fen. Removed a small patch of invisible water in Everfall, north of Orion, that can slow player movement or cause the player to drown. Imagine drowning in nothing. How that had to be. Fixed an issue with an elite chest clipping through an Orcalium vine, making it difficult to loot in Murkgard. Various fixes to gatherers and vegetation below or inside World Collision. Various fixes to holes in World Collision. Now we have some combat and AI changes. General AI bears increase the hit volumes for bipedal bears so that players can more consistently damage them. Skeletons reduce the amount of health that skeletons will revive with from 70% to 40%. You know, it's funny that in the game, everywhere they're referred to as the ancients, or the ancient skeletons, ancient this, and here they're just like skeletons. It's only like certain skeletons that revive though. Villagers reduce the amount of healing that is granted from villager potions from 35% to 20%. Increase the cooldown on the potions. Villagers. Varangian Knights. The Varangian Knights celebrated the Winter Convergence by laying down their weapons and painting them to match the color of their armor. Tendrils, corrupted tendrils and angry earth and tendrils, reduced the damage of sweep attack by 40%, reduced frequency of this attack but increased reaction to a knockdown. They've reduced the damage of a stab attack by 50% and removed stagger reaction, reduced damage of thrash attack by 40%, reduced damage of projectile attack by 50%, and removed stagger. Tendrils got a big nerf, but tendrils were crazy, man. They just like non-stop attack you and did so much damage. They definitely needed that nerf, especially if you were not a ranged player. It seems like the only way you could really take them out is either being ranged or just fast enough to get on top of them and do a lot of damage. So that's good. Swamp Beast Arena Boss. Fix an issue preventing the Swamp Beast from properly consuming minions. Swamp Beast. Expedition AI. Garden of Genesis. Fixed an issue preventing enemies from despawning after failing to defend the sapling. Alluvium Marl. Remove the unintended ability for minions to apply a debuff against Alluvium Marl on their death. And Blighted Greenskeeper. Reworked the visual effects on Blighted Greenskeeper to be more visible. Now we know in combat they've added some Mutator Perks. For the weapon perks, there are now Flame Attunement, Frost Attunement, Arboreal Attunement, and Abyssal Attunement. These weapon perks deal an additional 15% weapon damage to whatever the attunement is. Cooldown 2 seconds. Armor perks, they're the same elements, the Flame, Frost, Arboreal, and Abyssal conditioning. These will all gain the 4% absorption to whatever they are, whether it be Flame, Frost, Arboreal, or Abyssal. Arboreal is nature damage, and Abyssal is void, and that'll be for 5 seconds. Each piece of armor with this perk increases the potency of the effect. So if you have 4 pieces of 4% void absorption, you'll have 16% void absorption going on. See, my math wasn't even quick. PvP damage formula update. We adjusted the way armor mitigation is calculated to use enemies' gear score value instead of your average gear score. To adjust for the difference in armor mitigation, we increased the damage low-level players do to higher-level players and reduced the damage the higher-level players do to lower-level players. That should be kind of interesting. We'll see how that works out. See how these level 20s taking out these level 60 guys with the right combination and that spawn. Outpost Rush. A lot of people had some issues with Outpost Rush, so let's see what they fixed. Increased the Azoth cost of brute tokens from 500 Azoth to 750 Azoth. Summoning stones are now dropped on death. Summoning stones now have a rarity associated with them. epic for bear and wraith tokens, and legendary for brute tokens. This should make it clear to players when they are dropped by other players. Outpost Rush Alpha Wolf will no longer summon minions. Outpost Rush Gatherables no longer have weight. Baroness Haynes Ice Mines now slow the player by 30% for 3 seconds instead of staggering the player. Water can no longer be gathered in Outpost Rush. Added 2 additional gate points on the side of each team spawn. Increased the cooldown on the Outpost Rush Brute's Corrupted Ball. And Outpost Rush Brutes will now be much less likely to use their Corrupted Ball spell when players are inside of the fort. I would like to see why they made these decisions. Like, we decided that the Brute's Corrupted Ball was being spammed too much, so we decided to increase the cooldown, something like that. Notable fixes. So they fixed an issue that allowed musket and bow light attacks to be activated underwater. I mean, shoot, why not? An issue that blocked bow from entering aim down sights is swapping to bow while in musket sniper zoom. They've updated the rapier Tondo ability and the bow barbed arrows at range of arrows, upgraded tooltips to state the damage per second instead of overall damage for the damage over time effects. I feel like there had to be something more there. Fixed the issue where player movement speed was sometimes increased while placing a camp. Tooltip for the fine corrupted sigil and correctly stating lightning damage instead of strike damage. Remove text that flies out when triggering quick shower. Fixed exploit where players could combine multiple ammo returns benefits and refund ammo using attacks that hit multiple times per use. Added a cooldown to ammo refund so it can not trigger more than once every 2 seconds per ability, perk, or attribute bonus. They fixed an issue where if shift was being held while aiming down sights with a bow or a musket, or if a player used any navigation action, the animations would stutter. Issues with players becoming stuck after interacting with NPCs. Issue that would cause you to cancel out of poison shot or penetrating shot if you're holding right mouse button while activating the ability. Issue where various status effects removals were resulting in the buff applying indefinitely. An issue where the bow concussion ultimate was applying to all attacks and not just headshots. An issue where mending protection wasn't functioning properly. To fix the issue, the following changes were made. They've updated mending protection to be able to be reapplied by any orb of protection heal, even the recovery from Protector's Blessing. And to compensate for that, the duration has been shortened and the effect of it has been reduced. Previously, it was 5% to 40% for 5 seconds. That only applied as the ability was initially used. Now it is 5% to 25% for 3 seconds. That duration can be refreshed with each tick of recovery and additional applications of Orb of Protection. There is an issue that got fixed where the Great Axe Reaped ability was not dealing damage when both the Collector modifier and the Gravity passive were unlocked. Issue that was prevalent in the PTR where Void Gauntlet's cooldown reduction was being triggered by damage over time ticks. They fixed a bug that did not allow Ancient Bear Paw to be used in crafting, an issue causing desyncs when using Shield Bash while moving. There was a desync issue that would occur when homing through Ice Shower ability. There was an issue causing desyncs on Reap when fully upgraded with the Bloodlust passive. An issue where the damage ticks from Bleeding Sweep on Despair were triggering cooldown reduction. And an issue with the Void Gauntlet that caused Baleful Tether status effect to be nullified by crouching or going prone. Now, if you guys are interested in the economy, progression, and loot changes, that's the section we're jumping into now. And looks like they're looking at housing tax and attitude rewards and some more. And for housing tax, it says, as a make good for the players impacted by the server clock issues experienced last year, we are reducing housing tax costs for all players by 90% based on the tax percent set by companies that own the territories. We communicated alongside that change would revert those taxes back in a future update. In the time the tax break has been active, it has brought to light an imbalance in wealth disparity, which is punishing for homeowners, and we have decided to tighten the housing tax band. We will continue to examine player reception and data around this issue. We are adjusting them to be more fair for homeowners and companies. We are focused on evaluating and continually tuning the overall wealth distribution and impact of the territory tax system. In this patch, we have reverted the make good 90% house taxing reduction. We've updated housing tax minimum ban to 2.5%, down from 5%. The maximum tax ban is 10%, down from 20%. Updating default housing tax to 5%, down from 10%. For aptitude rewards, with the introduction of trade skill aptitude, we imbalanced the gain of exhaust vials, which made them too plentiful, and the excess of these items for some players was causing damage to the overall value of exhaust vials as a reward. Since these can be traded, we want to make sure they stay rare and special. We will continue to watch player sentiment and data here to see if further adjustments are needed. So now they removed exhaust vials from Tier 1 Gathering Chest, and they reduced from Tier 2 and Tier 3 down to 1 and 2, or 1 to 3 respectively. And for Tier 1 Aptitude Crafting and Refining Chest, Tier 2 and Tier 3, they went from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, and 2 to 3. For some of the rewards, they fixed a bug where players under level 60 were able to get gypsum from darkness events. Players must be level 60 now to start earning gypsum from those events. And the Surgeon, Pit Lord, Dahi, Baines, and Mordecai the Mortician previously did not drop battle trophy materials. This has been fixed! Exclamation. Crafting. Fixed an issue where timeless shards were not being consumed while crafting. An issue where the Maker's Mark hatchet to incorrectly display as legendary with an extra perk in the crafting menu. That's a big issue. Was it supposed to be legendary? Updated art for energizing light ration and travel ration to better represent the ingredients used to create them. Fixed blackened manji manji with corn succotash recipe that requires a lava barb. The recipe title now references the correct fish. Fixed a bug that was preventing players from crafting Gear Score 600 Arcana items using winter patterns. I'm glad I didn't craft anything using winter patterns. Fixed an issue that prevented the use of onyx when crafting earrings using timeless shards. For gear and loot, to simulate the post-holiday economy, we've added a limited time rare drop called Bag of Juniper Berries, which gives players coin and juniper berries. It has the potential to reward between 50 to 150 coin per acquisition, and you can only find 3 per day. They fixed an issue where Rothord alligators were dropping an excessive amount of rawhide, an issue where 600 gear score named items were increasing your expertise, an issue where the Lazarus bow had less dexterity than other bows at its tier and gear score, and now has an equivalent amount of dexterity. There was an issue where the earring petal could not be repaired, an issue causing Egwin's cloak to stretch with certain animations, an issue causing the Dynasty Shipyard Mutator ring to display an incorrect name and description, and now shows the right one, an issue preventing players from socketing gems into Mutator accessories, and from socketing gems into Old Ring, Old Earring, and Old Amulet. For progression, they sped up leveling for the mid-game levels of 23 to 45 by 20%. We saw that mid-game leveling was taking a bit long and did not match pacing of the content we had. It did take forever for me to get to 45, and now I have to figure out how I'm going to get to 60. I ran out of quest. Expedition Tuning Orbs. Materials used to craft expedition keys, chisels, and corrupted fragments, shards, crystals, and lodestones are now tradable. Oh, okay, yeah, the materials used to craft them. Expedition Mutator Tuning Orbs can be crafted once per week and also have been added to the faction shops and can be purchased there once per week. To keep parity with Expedition Mutator Tuning Orbs, normal Expedition Tuning Orbs for Dynasty Shipyard, Genesis, and Lazarus Instrumentality have been added to faction shops and can each be purchased once per week. To reduce the cost of all items in an inventory taking durability damage on death, we made a change so that only bound items take durability damage on death. Well, that's cool. Having to repair like every item in your inventory was pretty ridiculous, but now if it's bound to you, now that will take damage, and you could probably still sell your stuff that's not. We fixed an issue that was causing players to lose progress when switching back to a faction they previously had been part of. Now when players switch back to a faction, they will retain their faction rank reputation, as well as the balance of their faction tokens. Unfortunately, we cannot restore players to the previous state for players who switched back to a faction before this update. Alright, for the UX, UI, and social, game entry navigation assistance added to the game. will help visually impaired players enter the world through voice narration of some critical steps needed to create a character and get started. Removed the ability to give gold to individuals outside of the player-to-player trading system. Added a new loading screen tooltip to help explain how the strong against weak against mechanics work. Players must now play the game for a minimum of 2 hours and have owned the game for 72 hours before they can use chat. But Jesus, this should help eliminate some more of the pesky gold sellers. I guess that's cool though, because they're just getting the game and making an account and blowing up chat. But wow. In-game store. The core packs now display number of furniture items included in a pack. Store items can now simultaneously display that they are on sale and that they are available for a limited time. That's just weird that they couldn't. Currency symbols now correctly display in all regions. For the trading post, they fixed an issue that caused the trading post sort by time function to function incorrectly. Inventory should no longer scroll back to the top after closing the sell window, whether you sell or cancel. There's some notable fixes here, not the ones that they mentioned earlier, but more notable fixes. That they fixed an issue where group chat could break after exiting a house, an issue where companies who own more than one territory were not getting merge reimbursements. Companies are now compensated depending on the number of territories they own rather than a flat amount. They fixed an issue where Outpost Rush reward screen would only show one reward even if multiple rewards were added. An issue that sometimes caused corrupted breach icons to not appear on the map. Hey, that was a big issue. A bug that caused the territory standing upgrade UI to stay on the screen if a player starts to trade while it's visible. An issue that sometimes caused items to not appear repaired after a player repairs all. A bug that sometimes caused the incorrect items to trade when trading from a split stack. Void gauntlet icons to match the gauntlet's model color. A number text overlapping issues in the UI. An issue with sorting by time on the trading post. An issue causing some timeless chart icons to display the incorrect weight. A bug where Eternal Pool Arena boss music could be heard right outside of the Eternal Pool Arena. A bug where sounds were not always playing at Navarro's kitchen. Adjusted the way mission tooltips dock. They now dock to the side of the tiles to make it easier to read detailed info on missions. They added a sound for when players capture points during Outpost Rush. Fixed a bug where players could not always hear Snap the Wolf when accepting the Snap's Blessing quest. Fixed server crash that likely stemmed from territories abandoning their governors. Fixed a discrepancy between server, client, and system clock timing in war and declaration screen. And last but not least, fixed an issue where the map was reporting that there was an upcoming invasion when there was actually an upcoming war. Oop. Thanks for your support, and we'll see you in Eternal. So yeah, that was a lengthy post, as always. I hope we get to the point one day where these aren't as long, they are getting shorter. So there was a lot of cool things in there. I'm not really happy with how the mutator system is set up. I don't like the time limit on there. I don't like that we're being punished on orbs. I like that the orbs can be reused for anyone, so you don't need to buy orbs for each one, and that they're allowing people to buy the ingredients they need to craft them through the trading posts. But I don't like that the regular dungeons are locked behind weekly locks pretty much, because you only get one orb per week or a day unless you decide to play with somebody who has an orb every day. But then you wouldn't be able to get your orb unless you're just stacking up orbs on the side. You should just be able to sell those boys on the post as well. Well, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below on what your thoughts are on mutators, if you tried them out in the PTR, and how well you thought they were, if you like the time limit, if you like some of these changes in here. I know the Azoth change, the travel cost should be a really good change. Until next time, guys, I will see you in the next video, or whatever MMO video I come up with. Just make sure you hit that subscribe button. Until next time, guys, thanks for watching. Peace.